Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of me looking through some old photographs. This is the final roll of film that I shot when I was in Florence. So we're starting off with a pretty iconic image of the city of Florence. This is the literal dome on top of the cathedral in the center of the city. Incredibly famous historical building. As you can probably see from the size of the people on the top of that as well, it's huge. It's absolutely gigantic. I mean, look, the cross on the top of the spire there is like 2-3 times bigger than any of the people stood there. Just for context, I've stood on that point as well. It is terrifying. The barrier is not that tall. It's really, really scary. If you've ever played any of the old Assassin's Creed games, you've probably climbed up this thing as well. But yeah, in real life, it's absolutely astoundingly impressive. I took this photograph from the top of the Campanile, which is the bell tower to the side of the cathedral itself. So yeah, we got this view across to the dome. I really quite like this one. It could be that, annoyingly, again, it's not quite central. The photograph is, or the subject of the photograph is not quite central. You can see there's more open space on the left-hand side than there's on the right-hand side of the building. But I think it's come off pretty well regarding that. Despite that, sorry. Nice dramatic sky. It's not bright sunshine. It's gloomy and grey, but I think that adds to some of the drama of it. Certainly makes that big golden orb with the crucifix on top stand out more against the background as well. So yeah, really, really nice image to begin this video on, I think. Followed by a not particularly good image. This is taken again from the top of that Campanile, but this time looking over towards the Palazzo Vecchio. If you've looked at any of the previous videos, that tower there on the sort of central left, there's a photograph that I've taken from the top of that tower of the cathedral, looking back towards the way that we are stood in this image. Unfortunately, yes, it's a grey day, but I've taken this photograph as the sun seems to have been just popping out between the clouds, and it's left this. I mean, I imagine in real life it probably looked quite dramatic and quite impressive, but like shafts of light coming down from the clouds. Unfortunately, how I've managed to capture it here means that it looks really muddy and really weird. It's still a nice-ish kind of panorama of a very, famous historical city in the world, and it looks very nice, but just these colours in the sky and sort of about 2/3 of the way down the image are a little bit annoying, and has sort of made it a bit washed out and muddy. Yeah, it could have been a lot better, I'd assume. Next time, I'll wait until the clouds cover the sun up again. Okay, now we're inside one of the museums. One of the great things about the cathedral in Florence is that you buy a ticket and it gets you inside the cathedral, up the tower, up on the roof, into some other stuff. I think in the basement there's a museum in the basement, and then it also gets you to this museum that's in a separate building on the same square. And inside is just loads and loads of statues that would have originally been on the building, obviously with things like centuries of weathering and pollution and whatnot, leaving the actual original sculptures on the outside of buildings like this is not exactly something you can really do anymore. So to save them, they've all been taken down and replaced with fake ones, and the originals are in this museum. There's a reason that some of these sculptures are kind of in this museum. Is some of them are made by like Donatello and Michelangelo. They are not just made by any old people. In fact, the one after this is literally going to be a sculpture of Michelangelo's. So we're talking immense historical and cultural importance. Anyway, this particular image, this is of the original golden doors, and yes, they are made of solid gold, that were on the front of the baptistry, which is a building that we might see in a moment in a photo coming up. It's sort of a building that's in front of the cathedral itself. These are, I think it's Gioberti, I think, is the name of the person who made these. Yeah, so that's gold and sculpted. Just scenes. I believe they are scenes from the Bible. I mean, it would make sense being on a religious building. I'm not quite sure what scenes. I think they're from the Old Testament. I have no idea, to be perfectly honest. But I think this is quite a nice image, especially considering it's shot indoors on Ektar, which is a 100 speed film. It's come out pretty well. Plus, then we've got these two people looking at it, and you got a bit of context, scale of exactly how big these things are. They are gigantic. They're hanging on the wall. You don't want them to fall on you. That would probably kill you if that fell on you. They probably weigh a ton. Yeah. So one of the images in the museum here. This sculpture is by Michelangelo. It's called Pieta. It is Jesus being carried down, or his body being taken down from the cross. I think that's meant to be John the Baptist in the background. I think that's those are the Mary Magdalene and Mary's mother, I think, on either side of him. I believe this was the last sculpture that Michelangelo ever made before he died. I think it's unfinished. I think the bottom right you can see is a lot rougher than sort of Jesus's face and body and John the Baptist. I believe it was unfinished at the time of his death. I'm sure off the top of my head that he attempted this sculpture 2 or 3 times. I think there's this one which is in Florence. There's another one similar that's in the Vatican, and I think there's another one that he smashed up because he was angry with it. I think the marble was imperfect and he destroyed it. Check that out. I might be making that rubbish up. But either way, I love this sculpture. I love it. I specifically went back to this museum to take this photograph. I'd been there the year before. I came back especially to take this photograph. I just love the lighting on it. It literally is just this sculpture at the end of a room with just this light shining down upon it. And yeah, I think it's beautiful. Annoyingly, I've just realised the bottom of the frame, that's not actually meant to be like that. That's literally exposed film. So I obviously messed this photo up. I've literally never seen that before. I've had this photograph for, 3 years at least now? So I obviously messed this up. One of my favourite photos I've ever taken, and I ruined it. Whoops. Yeah, there we go. Here's another photograph of a guy. I'm sure this one is Cosimo the Great. 99% sure that's who this is, which is the first Duke of Tuscany or Grand Duke of Tuscany. So yeah, this is just a generic statue. It's next to one of the churches. I mean, there's loads of churches in Florence, of course there is. Not too far away from the central market, and there on the right hand side is a supermarket. A supermarket I have been into. Little fact for you there. But yeah, this is just a generic photograph of a statue. I've got to think about taking photos of statues and buildings. Clearly, you've obviously noticed that. This is just another one. It's not particularly good, I don't think, if I'm perfectly honest with you. But yeah, it's just another image of a statue. Okay, this is coming into the Piazza del Duomo. There's the cathedral in front of us. As you can see, it's blooming gigantic. This sort of cross on a big obelisk in front of me here, that's what I was trying to take a photograph of. I've managed to cut the bottom off it, so that's stupid. The building just to the right of us there, that's the baptistry. That is the building that had the golden doors on the front of it originally. It's now got some fake ones, because obviously they're worth, well, they're millions, billions. I don't know, they're probably not even worth money, to be perfectly honest with you, something like that. So yeah, they're not on there anymore. They're in that museum. The museum is actually at the back of all of this. So you see whether you got the cathedral, you got the main dome there, and you got like a smaller dome on the left hand side. If you go behind that smaller dome, that's where that museum is. It's just behind the cathedral. The cathedral is gigantic. You get a scale of it again here. I mean, look how small everybody is compared to that, and that's it's quite a bit of a walk away still as well. It's not even like I'm close to it. I'm on the other side of the piazza. So yeah. Image itself is a little bit busy. I think there's far too much going on, but then again, this is one of the most famous sites in the entire world for tourists, so you're not really going to get a photograph here and without tons and tons of people in it. Even on a day like this where it started raining not too much longer after, it's just full of tourists all the time. But again, I suppose it gives you a nice sense of what the city is actually like and what this place is like at this time. Okay, the last few images that we've got on here, because this time I managed to only take 9, didn't even take 10. 9 this time, instead of the usual 12 that it should take on this roll of film. We've just got some street scenes. Here we just got a guy riding a bicycle. His face is very slightly out of focus, annoyingly, and it's not really particularly interesting. It's just someone riding a bicycle past the front of the cathedral. That's about it. I suppose his trainers are bright, but other than that... This one I quite like. This guy just seems to always be here next to the cathedral every time I've been to Florence. I've been to Florence, 3 or 4 times now, and every single time he has been there with his violin rocking out and, taking money. I'm pretty sure he was playing something really weird. It'll come to me after I finish recording, annoyingly, and I might put it in afterwards. But yeah, he plays like classical music, and then he'll play like some really weird pop song. I can't remember which pop song it is, but yeah. Either way, I think this has worked quite well because he's wearing sort of green and darkish green colours, which go well with the background and the wet floor around him. Even though it looks like quite a dull image in terms of colourfulness, I think the colour palette works well. So yeah, and also he's central, and it's an interesting person to take a photograph of. You know what it's like with street photography. Sometimes it's just photographs of people for the sake of people. This one at least is someone, who's vaguely interesting. Plus, it seems a little bit more like a portrait because there's no one else around and he's nicely central and he is clearly the focus of the image. Final shot is this one. It's a merry-go-round. I believe this is Piazza della Repubblica. As you can see, it's not too far from the cathedral because that's the campanile there sticking out at the top in the background. Top of that, that's where the first 2 images have been photographed from on this particular video. One looking kind of towards us and one looking other ways towards the cathedral. But yeah, I really like things like this, like old merry-go-rounds. There's one in Cardiff actually that I've taken quite a few photographs as well. Obviously, this is a little bit more of a pleasant place to go than Cardiff. Not that there's anything wrong with Cardiff, but it's not quite, Florence. But yeah, I like the lights on it. I like the colours on it, and I just like it. It's a nice thing in the middle of this street. Plus, you got the campanile poking out the background. You can see it's an interesting place. It's an interesting place that this photograph has been taken. I'm pretty sure we can see as well the guy sort of walking on the right hand side. He's staring directly at us, so we got kind of eye contact there as well. Let me know what you think. I really quite like this image. I think it's a nice one to end the video on. And this is actually the last photograph from Florence from this lot. So yeah, let me know what you think. Hi everyone, thanks very much for watching as always. Next time we're going to be in Rome for the final leg of the journey around Italy in 2017. Hopefully you've been enjoying these images. We should have something, I should have something a little bit different for you coming up soon. I've actually gone out, taken photographs with a camera attached to myself, so you can see the process itself as it's going on. Hopefully that is something that should interest you. If not, why are you going to look at this channel? Basically. As always, like, subscribe, they should be around here on my face. Yeah, until next time, thank you. See you again soon.